Dr. Holliday, what are the best practices for teaching science?
There are many best practices, but I like to think of it in four broad ways. One is to connect the practice to a stringent curriculum and content, and that content and curriculum is based upon the local, state, and national standards. And also the curriculum is inquiry based. And really that leads to the second overall theme of best practices is to incorporate multiple ways of teaching science so that we can reach as many diverse, unique students as possible. And then the third is really just to consider assessment. What are your goals and objectives? And always assess along the way to make sure that you're achieving those goals and objectives. And they should be clear to yourself and to your students. And that's where it's important to lesson plan and really think about what you're doing. And the fourth has to do with connecting to the community, parents, local resources, community resources, and sites such as museums and science centers, so you can really bring the classroom beyond the walls. So in those four ways, I think best practices can really be achieved in science education.
Could you give us an update on what science teachers need to know about the standards?
Well, the current national standards are being revised into a new set of national standards called the Next Generation Science Standards, which are due to be out around 2014, 2015. There is also going to be engineering practices, so a more of an emphasis on problem solving, creativity, innovation, and collaboration. Along with that, there's going to be a lot more technology. So these standards, again, they're national standards. The state of Ohio may incorporate all or some of these standards. So we have to be aware of that coming down the pike.
And schools will need to invest more in
Correct.
technology, right? In having up-to-date computers.
Correct, that's very true. And that's a consideration districts are undergoing right now.
How do you think teachers can best reach a variety of learners in teaching science?
Well, by providing multiple ways to introduce the content. So this is why I think the SciOp model is actually a nice model, because it introduces the science content in a variety of ways, so we can address the multiple ways students learn. I think that's another important piece, making the science relevant to students.
Could you give us an example?
The traditional way is to introduce a scientific concept by saying the vocabulary word means this, and this is what it pertains to. With more of an inquiry-based lesson, you're hooking the student by introducing kind of something they've never seen before, that's something that puzzles the student, something that brings up questions among the students. And then you're investigating that question, that problem. And then once the students learn a little more, you elaborate upon that content, and then you can introduce some of the content or the vocabulary related to the content. So the students are more invested right at the beginning, and the teacher becomes less of the focus of the lesson and becomes more of a facilitator of the learning. So it's just a matter of switching things around sometimes to make it more inquiry-based and more student-centered.
Do you think teachers in the elementary grades who are more generalists would need support for how to deliver their science curriculum in a more inquiry-based fashion.
I think the inquiry piece is probably a little more acceptable, but the science piece is more difficult for elementary teachers. They don't feel comfortable with the content. They may not have the background to teach the content. And what's been shown is if either of those are the case, teachers will simply not teach science, or it becomes relegated to, you know, a small corner in the classroom where it's like a discovery center. So they're addressing the science, but without really having to deal with teaching it themselves in their own minds. So I think professional development, more content provided to elementary teachers to help them feel more comfortable with the content will be a great benefit.
In your experience, what do you feel is the most difficult part about teaching science?
Working with their colleagues in other disciplines as well, especially if you're in elementary, will help incorporate other content areas. So having more art, social studies, the mathematics, the language arts, all of those discipline-specific people working together in the upper grades, and elementary teachers working with each other to create interesting inquiry-based, problem-based learning situations. Again, I think professional development is really important beyond your classroom. So having the resources from your principal, your school, your district to attend professional development varies, but I think it's very important for science teachers to go to regional, to national meetings, to see what other teachers are doing, to tap into the resources at such organizations as the National Science Teachers Association or the Science Educators Council of Ohio. Both of those have journals. Both of them have free resources for science teachers to tap into. And just looking at journals that both of these organizations produce really provides a lot of support and ideas for teachers. And it's surprising, many science teachers don't realize that this is all out there. And just by becoming a member of either of those organizations, you have free access to many of the journals through the websites, and all of this can be accessed online. And those are tremendous resources. And again, utilizing those, what I call informal science institutions, museums, science centers, zoos and aquariums, all of those sites also have tremendous resources, both online and on-site. They provide professional development, they provide curriculum, and they are very concerned about aligning all of their curriculum with the standards, the national and the state standards. So they're turning into quite a resource and are providing quality curriculum materials.
Excellent. Thank you so much.